Let's say if I was to give you $10 million today, what would you invest that in? Where is the real upside in the business?
There is an intrinsic human need to go out, to socialize. That is not something that home-based entertainment can ever compensate for.
Your father started the business. Of course, he had a vision, taking it forward while also maintaining that flexibility and creative freedom. How do you manage that?
I feel like I have to constantly go back to what the core values of the business were, because that's essentially our brand identity, and that's the value that we've built over these 30 to 35 years. So it's a mix of both, basically, holding on to what has gotten us here as well as what will help us stay here for another 20 to 30 years.
It's very interesting that we've known each other for 18 years, right?
Yeah.
And we've never spoken about your work. I say it's very interesting that we've known each other for 18 years, right? 20,
Have we?
yeah, 18 years,
Oh,
2006, right?
Yeah.
And we've never spoken about, like, I find it
About work.
unbelievable. We've never
Yeah.
spoken about your work.
Maybe a little bit here and there.
I think there was just one conversation I remember
Yeah.
when I had initially moved to Karachi. I think there was the only conversation where, and that was also like a very surface level conversation. I think there was some talent related thing that we were talking about, but we never spoke about work, which is unbelievable because my conversations, 90% of my conversations
are about work.
are about work.
I generally don't like talk about work because I feel like I do it all the time at home and at work. So, you know, when I'm out with friends and I don't want to bring that up again because, that's pretty much what I talk about otherwise. So,
okay, interesting. Let's start. Welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. In fact, it's the last episode of She Talks Business. And we're talking about family entertainment centers today. Very excited to have Sidra with me. Sidra, let's just start with a little bit about you. And you're the CEO of Sindbad. What was that journey like? How did you start? Let's start there, and then we'll dive into how family entertainment centers work, etc.
Yeah, so Sindbad was actually it's a almost 35-year-old business. We started in 1991. I did not start it 35 years back, but it was. I mean, the concept was that it's a family entertainment center within a mall, and it served as the key entertainment attraction for the mall. So the idea was that families would come in to shop. Given this particular space and vice versa. So it would bring people to the mall, and also the mall would benefit from the footfall that was already there in the mall. So that's how it started back then. And the concept is still pretty much the same. I joined about, I think 14 years back, 2011. Very sort of a spontaneous thing. It wasn't planned. It wasn't, when I was in university, if someone asked me if this is where I saw myself, it really wasn't the case. But it just sort of landed here. And it's been 14 years, and it's been a good 14 years, I believe. And I learned a lot along the way. Yeah.
Awesome. So currently, Sindbad is in how many cities? How many branches do you have? And then this is a family entertainment center. Like, how is it different from, let's say, amusement parks, etc.? Does Sindbad also have amusement parks? Like, tell me a little bit more about Sindbad itself.
Yes. So over the years, Sindbad has branched out into, there is an amusement park part of the business. I don't look at it. The part of the business that I'm looking at, we're primarily in Karachi and Lahore. So we have 3 locations in Karachi, 2 in Lahore. The second one in Lahore just opened up about 3 months back. So I'm just looking at the mall-based or the standalone outlets that are in a retail and a hospitality environment. How Sindbad, the sort of the business that I'm looking at differs from some amusement parks and theme parks. So Sindbad is the chain that I'm looking at is a chain of family entertainment centers. These are primarily located inside shopping malls or in retail sort of shopping streets. And they target an audience that lives within 20 to 30 minutes away from the location.
Right.
And we are primarily based on repeat visits. So we calculate our profitability, keeping in mind that each customer that we have would visit us at least once in a month. And that's how we differ from theme parks, because theme parks are more sort of tourism based. So it's not something, you'd probably go to a theme park once in a year. Theme parks are also usually outside the city because they require a lot of space. They'd have, full scale roller coasters and attractions. So it's not, sort of within a residential district. You'd never find them there. It'll always be, you'd have to travel a bit to go there. Disney is an example, the biggest example of a theme park. And that's always going to be something that even the locals wouldn't really go there regularly. It's a one-off thing. While family entertainment centers is, something that you would end up probably going, like, it's a habit. So you'd probably end up going a couple of times a month with your family. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought that it's not something that people do very frequently, but I'm probably not the right target market for Sindbad. So if I was to, like, how does the math work in a business like this, in terms of if I wanted to start a business and I wanted to open my first family entertainment center, how much would it cost? What are the biggest levers in terms of costs? I'm obviously assuming it's a capital intensive business, so it's the machinery, etc. But what are the biggest costs? What does profitability look like, etc.?
So at the moment, the costs are very high and they're only getting higher. The main cost would obviously be the cost of the equipment, which is majority, 90% is imported. So it's highly dependent on, your currency or exchange rate and all. Then after that, it's the cost of the setup itself, the interior, your HVAC, your air conditioning, your electric equipment, and most of that is local, but then that's also imported in some way or the other. So the majority of the cost, 90% of our cost, is already incurred when we're ready to open. And that's when the revenue starts coming in. So that's pretty much where we're taking all our risk, because and then once we've set up the outlet, then it's very difficult to make any major changes. So let's say if we've already invested in an amusement attraction, we can't just, and if it's not doing that well, we can't just take it out and say, let's put something else. So majority of our decision making is before the outlet opens, and then we're pretty much ready for operations, and then we can make small changes based on response, but not something major. So I'd say the main investment is right at the beginning, and it is very high, and we sort of look at break even in about at least 3 to 4 years, not before that.
Right. So I mean, I would assume that a lot of work goes into, like, the planning part, because like you said, you can't make changes once it's done. So are there, like, some interesting things that you consider in terms of how the layout of the space, or the choice of equipment that you have there? Does it vary from city to city or from location to location? Like, what does the planning part look like?
So it does not vary from city to city. Over time, we have made a model that we feel that works really well for us. So we kind of replicate that model now wherever we go. There's a certain mix. So we'll do like maybe 30% arcade games, 10% amusement attractions. Then active entertainment does really well now. So we do maybe 30 to 40% active entertainment, which will be the soft play, the climbing walls, the inflatable, and all of that. So we have a formula that we feel has worked really well for us, and we kind of replicate that wherever we go. However, we will look at who the target market is. So and what sort of space is available. If we have a good space, like in Lahore, we just opened on 31,000 square feet. So we thought this is the space where we can pretty much do everything. So we've done bowling, we've done active entertainment, arcade, everything. But if the space was smaller, then we would think about, okay, who is the target market? Do we want to target families with older children or young adults? So that would be the Sindbad Extreme concept. Or is it, something for younger kids? And then we do the other Sindbad that we have, Sindbad Play at Dolmen Clifton, which is more for toddlers and for children under 10. So that the demographic would be sort of age-based, I would say. That's how we would classify it, but not... I feel up to now, I mean, in the major cities, we're just looking at Karachi and Lahore, the formula has pretty much been the same, and it's worked in both places.
So there's not a lot of experimentation in terms of the layout, etc. at the moment?
Not at the moment. Initially, there was.
Hmm.
Now, I'd say we've kind of figured out what works for us and what doesn't, and we kind of work with that particular formula. So we're not doing a lot of experimentation, but initially there definitely was, because we didn't know what will work and what wouldn't. Yeah.
And how do you decide which city or which area you want to target next? So, for instance, you're in Karachi and Lahore right now. What would make a third city a possible place for you to open up? What are those factors that you're looking at demographically and even otherwise? Like, what are the indicators that now I want to open in this place?
So we are currently just looking at the major cities. It would The demographics would be obviously purchasing power, but we're
Right.
also looking at big cities because we get people from multiple socioeconomic backgrounds. So Sindbad has always been a business that we look at lower margins per person, but we work on numbers. So we want to be in big cities where we will get people from all sorts of backgrounds, because those numbers then translate into profitability for us. We would never be something that targets a small sort of a niche market, because our business model does not allow us to do that. So which is why we go for the bigger cities, because essentially because of numbers, because there are more people there with a certain amount of purchasing power. And then cities like Lahore and Islamabad, they're connected to other smaller cities. So once we get there, then we also feel that we can target people from the smaller cities, because they do come there on the weekends, and that kind of increases the overall footfall that we get.
Right. And you mentioned that your margins are small. So, particularly with increasing costs and all those issues, what are some levers that you pull generally when your margins get squeezed?
So this was something that we faced post-COVID. All our equipment is, as I mentioned, it is purchased from other countries, and it's highly dependent on the dollar-rupee exchange rate. So post-COVID, when the currency kind of just dropped down to pretty much nothing, we realized that any equipment that we are going to buy has, in rupee terms, has become very expensive. So if we were looking at a 3 to 4 year break even, we might be looking at maybe even a 10-year break even, which doesn't make sense because of the poor exchange rate. So then we kind of worked on. So what we realized was that we have very high fixed costs, but very low variable costs. And so the idea was to get every customer to spend more, but then they should also see higher value in that spending. So we realized that because when our outlet is open, electricity is being consumed, the staff has to be paid their salary, we have to pay rent regardless of how much revenue is coming in. So we should kind of, to optimize that, we should offer more to our customers. And so we have a pricing policy now where if you're spending less than 2,000 rupees, you don't really we don't really incentivize it. But as you go on from that particular spend, we increase the amount of free credit that you will get. So at 2,000 you might get 200, at 5,000 you'll get about 1,250, and then if you're spending about 10,000 you will get 30% extra and you'll get 3,000 rupees. And that works for us because essentially that helps us pull the amount that an individual customer would spend, and it also works in their favor because they get a lot more for that spending. So that's how we were able to increase the spend per person without it seeming like, without the customer losing and feeling that there's no value for money in their spending anymore.
Were there other things that you tried that maybe didn't work in terms of getting more people to spend more or utilizing more of your time? Because I'm assuming most of your audience comes perhaps on weekends.
Yes, that's correct. So using that same sort of formula, we thought, okay, let's also, because 80% of our customers are coming on weekends at the moment and 20 to 30% on weekdays. So again, we thought, fixed costs, same cost of running on weekdays, why don't we try to incentivize weekdays spend? So we went up to even 50% off on weekdays, and we realized that it wasn't really giving us the kind of response that we wanted. Primarily because, I mean, this is what we realized over time, that even though we are incentivizing weekday spend, that's just not something that the customer wants to do or is not able to do. So, on weekdays, kids might be in school, parents are busy. There's some families that don't go out without the father, and the father is busy on the weekdays. These days, both parents are working. So it's just not possible for them to come on weekdays, regardless of how much we incentivize it. So that was something that I would say kind of backfired, and we realized that this is just the model that we'll have to work with, that majority of the customers will come on the weekends, and differential weekday and weekend prices don't really make sense.
Do you think there's is there higher or lower customer loyalty in this business, in terms of if somebody comes to Sindbad, they are going to come every month and they'll continue to come to Sindbad for the rest of their lives, etc.? Is there that kind of customer loyalty generally?
Definitely. And that's actually something that we are able to gauge as well and measure, because we've moved on to the card system now. So with the card system, if a customer retains one card, we can pretty much check their entire history. And that's something that we've turned into a loyalty program now. So let's say you purchased your card in 2012 and you're still using that card. We have all your data from the card use data from the time you purchased it to now. So we know which games you're spending on and what your accumulated spend is. And we have a lot of customers that have been coming to us for over 10 years now, and they have their loyalty card now. So how the loyalty card works is, if you accumulate up to now I think it's 50,000 rupees is the basic card, an accumulated spend of 50,000 rupees on one card, you then become a loyalty member, where you get your own sort of personalized card with your name and picture on it, and you also get a discount booklet, which has discounts not just from Sindbad but from other brands as well. And then, so that's the basic, 50,000 is the basic. Then if you have a spend of about 80,000, then you go on to the second tier, which is the silver member, where you get even more benefits. And then finally there's gold, I think at about 150 to 200,000 rupees. So yes, we do have a lot of customers who have that accumulated spend, and now they want to know what's next, where's platinum, what do we get after this, because they've done pretty much, they've reached that level. So at silver, at gold at the moment, we have VIP pricing. So on each game you get a lower price, which is only for the gold members.
That would be a lot of interesting data, like based on the card system now. Are there interesting things that have come out of the data? And like, what is the maybe lifetime value of a customer, or how much has somebody spent, or what rides most people prefer, or what equipment or what kind of entertainment they prefer? Are there interesting things that have come out of that data?
So a lot of customers will have multiple cards, and then they have spending on each one of those cards. So they'll bring all of them together and they'd say, now combine it and take the accumulated spend as the spend on all 5 of these cards, which is sort of something that's difficult to explain to them, that we cannot do that, and it has to be on one particular card. But it makes sense because in a family, then if one child becomes a member, then they want the other kids to get the same benefits as well. So then they'll start spending accordingly on the other cards, just to make sure that all the kids are on the same level. So that's one thing that we saw. The second thing was tickets. People collect a lot of tickets, and that's again something that we can see, because when you collect tickets, you collect them on these cards, you load them on the card. So that's something.
You mean tickets as in access to rides, or
no? So these are redemption tickets. These are tickets that you win from games, and you can at the end of the day load them on your card and accumulate them on your card as well. This is separate from the loyalty points that we have. So we saw people who have collected hundreds and thousands of tickets, but they're not redeeming them. I don't know what they're waiting for, but they've been collecting them over the years. And
is it that people forget? Like, I would be somebody who collects it, but then it's like too much work to like think of redeeming.
No, not at all. Actually, they're fully aware of how many tickets they have on their card. A lot of times they'd come and they'd even argue with the cashiers that I feel that some of my tickets went missing from my card, although I haven't redeemed them. So they're fully aware of how much is there, but for some reason they don't want to redeem them. I don't know, those particular tickets are very precious for them, and they're saving them for some particular
something massive.
and so eventually we had to change our policy policy, and now we've have a policy that within 2 years you have to redeem your tickets,
Otherwise
or they
you
will expire. Because people just weren't using them. They were collecting them and very well aware of how much was there on their card, but just not using it.
So okay, so you have at least the advantage of a loyal customer base, but what does it take to create a new customer, for example? What's the cost, let's say, of acquiring a new customer, and how do you do it? Like, how does a new customer find out about you, or what's the maybe the value proposition for them?
So that's something that's very difficult for us to measure, and just to generally figure out how new customers find out about us. We have the location advantage. So, we're located in shopping malls and people are already coming there. Plus, we have the brand name. It's a 35-year-old brand. So everyone is pretty much aware, at least in the bigger cities like Karachi and Lahore, they know what the brand is. So in that sense, we haven't really had to work hard to, for brand awareness. How do the new customers come in? I feel birthday parties is one way that we are able to kind of get new people in, because anyone who comes in as a guest might not have visited before, but this is sort of their first interaction, and a very pleasant sort of introduction to to what we have to offer, because they're there as part of a birthday party. Other than that, we're using pretty much what everyone is using these days, but we're not very aggressive in terms of our marketing, because we feel that the customer's already coming there. So we kind of want to, our communication is more for the customers that are already part of our database to get them to come again. But that first time customer, we really don't have to sort of make a lot of effort in that. I mean, we're using Instagram, we're using social media and all. We did do an advertisement campaign on TV, I think almost 7-8 years back. But since then, we felt that, we're in a place right now where we want to concentrate more on our existing customers and communication with them as opposed to the new ones. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back to like consumer behavior and all of those things in a bit, but going back to the math of the business, where is the real upside in this business? So let's say if I was to give you $10 million today, I don't know if that's less or more for this business, but let's say if I was to give you $10 million today, what would you invest that in? Like in new locations or tech, or where is the real upside in the business?
Definitely a new location, because the market is huge. The market for family entertainment in a country like Pakistan, it's never ending. Like there's so many people, and it's not, as I said, it's not, we don't target a particular niche. We look at pretty much everyone who earns, let's say, even 50 to 70,000 rupees a month. They're also a customer, and they have children. They're also a customer. So they might come and spend maybe just 1,000 rupees or even 500 rupees. That's fine, So that's still our target market. So that makes, just in terms of the numbers, that makes Pakistan a huge market. And I feel that not just us, whatever there is in the market, that's really not enough. So I would definitely invest in new locations. In the bigger cities for the time being, but then eventually getting to the smaller cities as well.
And if it's such a big market, are there other players coming in? Like a lot of them are coming in. Is there enough people tapping into that potential?
They are. So I'd say in the last 10 years, there have been a lot of new players. Before that, it was pretty much Sindbad and one or two other brands.
So that also would have given you like a big advantage. Like you didn't have to work too hard to like, or was it, sometimes first mover advantage is also there, but it's also a disadvantage because you educate the customer on, there's a space like this. How did it work for you guys?
Yes. So yes, the first mover advantage was there. But again, the market was... people did not really want to spend a lot on entertainment, especially entertainment on children. So, when you spend on food, as my father says, कि at least आप घर पेट भर के जाते हैं, या रिटेल में आप करते हैं तो आप अपने साथ एक कपड़ा साथ लेके जा रहे होते हैं. यहाँ आप साथ कुछ नहीं लेके जा रहे होते. यहाँ एक रोता हुआ बच्चा आता है और रोता हुआ बच्चा घर जाता है. So, you maybe second... think about whether that particular amount that you spend, was it worth it or not? Do you want to do that again? And that's also something. So over time, that has sort of changed. Maybe our parents' generation, they did not want to be spending that much on children's entertainment. There were other things that were more value. than that. So first mover advantage tha bhi aur nahi tha isliye tha because the market did not spend that much at that time. So we can still increase prices today. 15 years back, we couldn't increase prices, which is why this was a very price sensitive market, and we really had to sort of experiment with our pricing strategy. So that was not something that people were willing to, there was a demand, but it was not something that people would spend a lot of money on. So that is something that has developed over time. And that is something that I would say was sort of a disadvantage for the first people in this industry. Yeah.
So like you said, when people come to you, they're not taking something tangible away. So, technically you're in the experience industry, or so to speak, you're in the business of making memories. So that's what people take away as a family. They come and they enjoy. Does that impact how you think about value and pricing and all of those things that impact how you think about it?
Definitely. So as I mentioned, the value that people attach to experiences, that has sort of increased over time. It really wasn't there in the past. And a lot of that has to do with access through the internet and social media. So now even if people haven't traveled, they're still well versed with what is available all over the world. So that's basically something that we try to that's the experience that we're giving at our outlets. And so when people come here, they should feel that they are at an international standard sort of location, and whatever they'd expect when they travel and they go to entertainment centers, that's the kind of experience that they will take from here. So we attach value to the overall experience in terms of the cleanliness, in terms of the convenience that they will have. That is where we feel that is where the customer is attaching value, and that is where they will be able to and willing to spend more as well if they get that experience that they have, at least if they've seen in other countries, and we are able to sort of give them something similar over here. Yeah.
And post-COVID, have you thought a little differently about what happens if another event like this happens? Like, it's a very physical experience, right? How would you deal with that? Do you think about that, or is that something that you've accepted? Okay, if that's something like that happens, it happens. Like, what do you do in that situation?
No, actually, we try not to think about it because there really isn't much. In COVID, we tried pretty much everything. But there wasn't anything that we could do. We weren't allowed to open, and we were the first industry to close and the last to open. And that was pretty much the case all over the world. So we couldn't really present the case of another country and say, look, here everything's open. Nothing was open. And this is an industry that was very sensitive in terms of the fact that it was that we are targeting children. So if schools were closed, then how could we possibly be allowed to open? So I think this is just something that this industry is particularly sensitive towards, and there really isn't any other solution except to shut down because we are a location-based entertainment industry, and that's the basic model. That's how we work, and that's not something that we can change because the demand for location-based entertainment will always exist, but it's completely different from the demand for home-based entertainment. So we cannot have one take over the other or one compensate for the other.
Right.
So it is something that will always be a fear, but there really isn't much that we can do about it.
I was going to talk about home entertainment, and then the fact that there's a lot of other avenues of entertainment now. There's like online gaming, and there's all those things that people can do sitting at home. And then talking about, Sindbad being a physical experience. Do you see that as a threat, particularly, with things moving online, etc.? Do you see that as a threat, or do you think there's an opportunity there?
Not at all, actually, because going out for entertainment is completely different from entertainment at home. And there is I do believe that there is an intrinsic human need to go out to socialize, whether it's just as a family or going out with your friends. So that is not something that home-based entertainment can ever compensate for. They're completely different things. And I think all of us need both, right? We need home-based entertainment, but we also want to go out with our friends and family. There's just like food as well. We have food at home, but we do want to go out to restaurants with our friends. And that experience is completely different from eating at home. The same with entertainment, that there is a need to go out, and that's how location-based entertainment is changing now. So a lot of things that are available at home will not do so well in location-based entertainment, but then there are other things that you cannot do at home, like competitive socializing is something that's becoming very popular all over the world. So you've always had competitive socializing in terms of bowling and laser tag, but now more and more things are coming in that particular genre. So you have competitive darts now, interactive darts. So there are batting cages that have been turned into the whole top golf concept. That's something that's becoming more and more common for other sports as well. And the whole idea is that you go out with your friends and you're not a pro golf player, but you're just having fun and competing with each other as a group outside the house. So that's something that will always, and that's becoming more and more popular now, I think, post-COVID.
Do you see a space where some of the, technology sort of seeping into your kind of business as well? So there's, augmented reality and there's all of those things. Do you see a place for that new kind of technology in family entertainment centers?
Yes, for sure. So we have a lot of virtual reality now. Pretty much everything has some virtual reality element to it, and we have that at our centers. And we've also realized that a lot of people have virtual reality at home. So a lot of customers that come to us, it's not their first experience with virtual reality. They do have headsets at home, and they are using that for home-based entertainment as well. How we differ is the equipment that we offer is more advanced and it's more for commercial use, while the ones that they'll be using are for home use. And then it's a completely different industry, location-based virtual reality and augmented reality. So there are different games being made for this particular industry, and they wouldn't be available for home use. And then you also have a majority of these games are played in groups, so that's where the competitive socializing comes in. We have escape rooms in VR. We have pretty much everything in VR. We have simulators. We have multiplayer sort of games where that families can play together, and all of this is in VR. So that's something that this industry was very keen to adopt, and I see a lot of new things developing in VR now, because I think cost-wise also it's easier to now develop games in VR than it is with the traditional mediums that they were using before.
Okay, I know you didn't start the business, but I'm just curious, like, why this business? And why did you decide, okay, this is what I also want to do?
So there was no point during the last 14 years where I thought, okay, where I actually thought about it, why this particular business. If you ask me now, though, I'd say, over the years, this is something that I've grown to love. This is something that's very, it's constantly changing. It's not something that... while there is some, as I said, there's some formulas that work for us. However, this is an industry. As an industry, what is available today, 5 years from now, it will be completely redundant. So you get to grow with the industry. You get to adopt the latest technology. And you get to innovate a lot in your own sense in terms of adopting the new equipment that's available. We constantly keep changing our equipment. 3 to 5 years maximum is the life of one particular amusement machine. Then we start looking at others. There's some that are classics that always stay. So this, I feel the fact that the industry is constantly changing is something that keeps you on your toes. And it's something that personally appeals to me. Yeah.
I think it's also interesting. The business has been around for so long. How do you stay relevant? Like this, like you said, so much is changing, and then there's new competitors coming in, and then there's other forms of entertainment also available, indoor, outdoor, digital, and then, all of those things. How have you managed to stay relevant?
So you have to stay up to date with what's available world over and what is doing well. And this is something that, a lot of fads come in. Like these days, paddle is a fad. And that is something that, probably started in one particular place and then it caught up, and now it's completely caught up in
It's
Pakistan.
also how you broke your foot.
Yeah, it's also how I broke my foot. So that's one fad I'm not adopting ever again. So yes, you have to keep up with what is popular all over the world, because generally we have seen that majority of the things that are popular, particularly in family entertainment, in other countries, they will also do well in Pakistan. So you just have to keep up with what is successful, and also their expos all over the world. So I do try to attend them, not so much now with my broken foot, but it's important to this is where all the new technology, all the new games that are available, they are introduced for the first time. So I try to make it a point to go to these expos, see what's available, see what's doing well, visit other entertainment centers, and then bring back what we feel will do well in our market. And generally our market is actually has shown a very keen interest in what's generally popular in other countries, particularly in the Gulf countries like Dubai and Saudi Arabia. So whatever's doing well over there, our local market is already, maybe because of the internet or because of travel, they're already very well aware of it. And they're also very keen to adopt new attractions available.
My assumption is that this is also a very service-based industry, again, because there's experience and all of that. Is it easy to find the kind of talent or team that you need to run a space like this and then provide that kind of experience to people? Can you easily find those kind of people here?
It is actually very difficult. That is one particular thing that we constantly struggle with, because majority of our staff is non-management staff. They work on the floor. They are slightly above minimum wage, so they'll be earning about 40 to 45,000 rupees. They're not very educated, so they've done their inter or their metric, and they're young. That's the most difficult thing to deal with. The majority are in their 20s, early 20s, late 20s. So there's not a lot that motivates them. We have health insurance for their families. We have educational incentives where we incentivize them sending their children to school by contributing towards the children's school fee. All of that works, but it doesn't really work for the staff in their early 20s, because a lot of them, they don't have kids, they don't have families. So for them, it has to be what we've realized over the years, that whatever incentive we're giving them, it has to be right now. It has to be something that they can immediately see. Even appraisal at the end of the year, a lot of them don't want to wait for that. So then we have quarterly incentives where on some aspect of their performance, they are immediately incentivized, because they don't want to think 6 months or 1 year. That's not in their thing yet. They just want something that's immediate and something that can be, and it's monetary, definitely. At this particular level, everything has to be monetary. So it has to be, and it has to be immediate. But generally, it's very difficult to deal with. There's a very high staff turnover. We have to work a lot on training. One thing that we figured out in training, and this is something that I personally observed, that a lot of times when you go walk into a retail store, for example, the staff that's selling the product doesn't really know much about the product, because they themselves can't afford it, which is the opposite of an experience that you'd have outside. Like, let's say you walk into a Sephora in Dubai or wherever, and you're asking for recommendations on certain skin products, the person who's selling it to you would immediately tell you, I have this on my face, or I've been using this at home. And that is, it makes it much easier for them to sell the product, because they're aware of it, which is not the case a lot of times in Pakistan. So what we do is, our staff, all our staff, regardless of what level they're at, they get their own play card with some amount of credit, depending on the level that they're at, 3,000 to 5,000 rupees, that they can spend themselves or with their families. So that's one thing. The second thing is, before we open every day, we get our staff to test all our games. So particularly if there's a new game, they'd all be encouraged to play it, to test it, to understand it. And in that sense, they develop, especially the male staff, they know a lot about the game, and they develop an interest for that game. So if even when I'm playing, sometimes they'll come and they'll correct me, and they'll say, SA, and this is how you reach the next level, particularly in VR. So I feel that's something that's worked really well for us, in terms of, maybe not in terms of motivation, but in terms of making sure that the staff knows that the product that they're selling, or when they're there at the floor, they're able to correct customers, they're able to upsell those particular games to them as well, because they play it themselves and they enjoy it themselves as well. Yeah.
I mean, talent is a very precious topic for me. I'm always excited to talk about it. So I'm curious, I mean, in terms of motivation, do you think it's primarily monetary because of the way that the business or the team is structured, in that they don't see a way up the ladder? Like you said, there's not a lot of management staff, there are more people just on the ground. Do you think that's one reason?
No, so on the ground as well, we have tiers. You'll start off as a basic attendant, but then you'll go up to becoming a supervisor, and then from supervisor, a team leader, a junior manager, maybe a manager someday. So there is that, they do see that sort of hierarchy there. Where they sort of get stuck is, I feel that because a lot of the staff is very young, and maybe this is just a stopgap for them. They don't really see, in Pakistan in particular, maybe people don't really see a career in retail. If they start at a management level, then they would probably see that progression, but they wouldn't see it if they're starting as an attendant. This is just something that they're doing while they're maybe getting a degree, or while they're trying to figure out what they want to do in their lives, or just because they're going through some sort of monetary crisis. A lot of staff that we get, they say a lot of times they say, we're paying off a debt, and till we do that, we're working over here. So it's not something that they sort of see a career in. I don't know why that's the case. Yeah,
that's interesting. I guess particularly, I think maybe not so much retail in general, but maybe it's the family entertainment business, or generally the entertainment business, where people don't see a career as such. Again, going back to particularly in Asian societies, there's always that three options of like a teacher or a doctor or an engineer, which is obviously thankfully changing now. But maybe it's because this industry is not seen so much as a career option.
Perhaps that is the case, but a lot of the staff that we hire, because we're located in malls, so they're probably from retail, from a shop within the mall, where we advertise that we have some positions open. So majority of the people coming in are are working in some retail store. So I think it's generally maybe the retail setup where there is a progression over the years. There are people who do get promoted. Maybe it's just something that they feel that they have to work very hard for, and the promotions are not that frequent. Let's say if we have 50 members in a team, maybe only one or two from them, there's only one or two positions for team leader and supervisor. So they don't see how an individual who is maybe not performing as well as the others would reach that level. So there are not a lot of supervisory positions available. Maybe that's the case over here. So that could be a reason why they don't really see a career in this.
Okay, I think another thing that I'm curious about, and I've actually been speaking to a few people about it, is that, I mean, technically this is a family business. And family businesses are run very differently from how other businesses are run in terms of succession. You almost always know who the next person's going to be, and so on and so forth. Do you think this being a family business is an advantage or a disadvantage?
That's a tricky one.
You also have to go home.
Yeah. I think generally it's an advantage. Depends on how the family business is run, right? Like there is no one particular model for all family businesses. There might be a family business where every decision has to be run by a certain member of the family, and if they only approve, then you can go ahead with it. I think in that sense, it would be a very difficult business to take decisions, especially for a person like me, because, even if I would be 100% confident about something, I would still be reluctant to implement it, given that I might get backlash from some family member. And it's not, when it's a family, you don't leave the work at work. It's also something that you'd be discussing at the dinner table. So you don't want to be criticized at the dinner table for something that you did at work.
And how do you deal with, like your father started the business, right? Or was it your grandfather?
My father.
Yeah. Okay. So, how do you deal with, of course he had a vision and an image in his mind, or long-term vision of what he wanted out of it, taking it forward while also maintaining that flexibility and creative freedom of, okay, I have the way the world is changing. How do you manage that?
So I feel like I have to constantly go back to what the core values of the business were and what is it that we've been doing well for all of these years. So it's really important to hold on to that, because that's essentially our brand identity, and that's, the value that we've built over these 30 to 35 years. So that's not something that we would ever want to let go of. So I have to constantly keep going back to that. Having said that, what is it that will keep us relevant in today's day and age, and what is it that the other businesses are doing, our competitors are doing, and it's working well for them. So that is, a sort of a market survey is constantly being done. However, it's really important to hold on to what has gotten us so far. So it's a mix of both, basically, holding on to what has gotten us here, as well as what will help us stay here for another 20 to 30 years.
And what do you think has gotten you guys this far?
I think it's the resonance with the brand. It is a household name in Karachi. It is a household name in Lahore. Maybe not so much in the other cities of Pakistan. So it's just that everyone, regardless of which generation they're from, they know what the brand is and they are familiar with the brand. Again, different socioeconomic groups as well. Because of our pricing strategy, this is something, and because of our locations, it is not something that sort of was restricted to one particular area of Karachi. So regardless of where in Karachi or in Lahore you're coming from, you are aware of the brand and you have visited it at some point in your life. So that brand identity is something that I feel that's gotten us so far.
I mean, with all the competition that's coming in, how are you going to maintain that brand identity? Because I think over time we've all seen with again social media and the awareness around what else is available in the market, locally, internationally, brand loyalty generally is going down across, any entrepreneur, any business person you speak to, they'll tell you that, brand loyalty is going down. It's very easy for somebody to switch to another brand today. So if I was to come into the market, start a new brand, I have access to social media, I can build that brand visibility, so on and so forth. How are you dealing with that kind of competition to stay ahead of the curve still? Like, you have that advantage of a brand, but 10 years in the line, it might not stay unless you consistently work on it. So what are you doing to deal with competition?
So we have the advantage of that brand value. We also have the advantage of economies of scale. We already have 5 locations operating, and I think we're the only sort of family entertainment center at the moment in Pakistan. Maybe I think the Joyland Group as well, that are operating on that scale. So when you're operating on scale, then we have a lot of advantages that a newcomer would not. One advantage that we have is that from time to time we swap our games. So attractions and rides cannot be swapped, but the arcade games can be swapped from one location to another. So if we feel that something's not very relevant at Dolmen Clifton anymore, so we'll just pick it up and send it to Tariq Road and send something from there. So that is without any investment. The only investment is the logistics. So that's something that works out very well for us. And then just generally, everything is done on a certain scale. So our management team is not only looking at one outlet, they're looking at 5 different outlets now. And it's a small team, but the only reason why we're able to afford them is because we're getting revenue from all 5 locations. And then when we're setting up a new location, like the location that we just did in Lahore, the financing from that now comes internally. So while, as I said, all our investment is done before the revenue stream starts coming in, and the only way you can afford that is if you have a consistent sort of cash flow coming in from other locations or through bank financing. But with bank financing, again, it has its own limitations.
Did you use bank financing at any point in time? And
we did.
Okay.
Yeah. So for our initial 2 outlets, in 2012 at Dolmen Mall Clifton, and then we opened one at Lahore in Fortress in 2015. We did use bank financing, but since then we've been self-sufficient, and we're just using the cash flow from the other outlets for new investments.
Okay, so last few questions. Have you noticed any change in families or family structures or how they behave? Because again, it's a family entertainment center, so you have access to how people interact with each other, etc. And so are families changing, and how does that impact your business?
Definitely, families are changing now. We more than ever we see more nuclear families. We see that both parents are working. We see that people have less time, so there is more value for that time that they're spending, whether it's with us or with anywhere else. So they want to maximize that. They want one-stop solutions. They want that if they're bringing their kids to Sindbad, maybe they can also get some shopping done at the same time. They'll go do their groceries. They'll spend their family time together. Everything's done during those particular hours. So that's what we need to value as well, that time is money and how we maximizing that for them. And then there's more awareness as well. And there's more focus on education entertainment more than ever. So that's something that we introduced in Karachi, and then when we were opening in Lahore, we were debating on whether that formula would work over there. We do a lot of like water play and air play, which comes in the category of educational entertainment, and that's something that you'd find in children's museums all over the world. So we were a little reluctant, and surprisingly it worked really well in Lahore as well. So we know that that's something that's emerging, and everyone wants that educational element into entertainment as well. And then lastly, we see that there is an increasing requirement for inclusivity when setting up a family entertainment center, and also in training our staff. So more over time, we've noticed that we're getting a lot of autistic kids, we're getting kids with special needs, and we've had a few complaints about how the staff might not be able to deal with them specifically in the sensitivity that is required. So that's also something that we're working on. And generally our outlets are designed in a way that they're more inclusive, they're more accessible, and that's something that was always there, but I feel that it's increasing over time. Perhaps people wouldn't really maybe that awareness is increasing over time on how children with special needs also require more sensitivity when they are being when they're in a public environment.
I think that's interesting. So aside from training your staff, how does that impact, particularly when it comes to autism, and like with physical disabilities, we've not gotten to that point where even people with physical disabilities are really catered to. But when it comes to disabilities like autism or ADHD and issues like those, how does that impact the kind of games, or maybe the lighting as well, or are there any disclaimers? Like, how do you deal with that?
So generally, we've seen that children with autism can participate in majority of our activities. This is something that the parents are more aware of, but at times, like they, ask us to lower the volume if that's something that's, that's irritating the child. And generally, it has to do more with staff, because children with autism can generally participate in, they love the soft play equipment. They can go for bowling, arcade games, and all. So that's usually not an issue. But it's more about how the staff deals with them. The staff has to recognize that they're different from the other kids, and we usually allow a caretaker along with that child. So if they're in the soft play, then a caretaker can go in with them for free, because we know that they will interact differently with other kids. But the whole idea is to make an environment where that's inclusive, and where they are we are able to integrate them as part of the environment and not differentiate between them and the other kids.
Right, that's very interesting.
And that's what the parents also want. They want their kids to play with other kids.
Interesting. Okay, I'll come to the last question, which is not relevant to the rest of the conversation, and it's a conversation that we've recently been having, which is about relationship with money. What has your personal relationship with money been? In terms of, what were the what's your earliest memory of around the concept of money or spending or saving? Like, what's your earliest memory? And do you think that has impacted the way that you save, spend, invest today? And also, like, maybe some of your business decisions.
My earliest memory, don't actually remember. But I think, yes, opening a bank account, that would probably be my earliest memory. And that's something that surprisingly happened very late for me. I think that was the case generally while we were growing up. Majority of us did not have bank accounts. So I got a bank account, I think, when I was going to college, because that's when my parents realized that she would need, money of her own, and she can't just keep coming and asking us for money. So I think that is what my earliest sort of formalized memory of money is. And generally, I see myself as I take risks when it comes to investments, personal and business, but I take very calculated risks. And I've noticed, I don't know, this might just be a personal opinion, but I feel that's how women and men are different. I've seen men, particularly male entrepreneurs, go all in and, gamble everything that they have for a new project. I would never do that. I would always take very calculated risks. I have to see when the return is. I have to see, whether it makes sense, and if it's something that's going to be even more than 5 years, I wouldn't invest in that particular thing, because you don't know where we will be in 5 years. You don't know where Pakistan will be, or the world will be. So in that sense, I take very calculated risks. And it has to be something where I see the profits, and something that I'm 100% I am pretty sure that we will get returns in that amount of time. And also try to self-finance, not go for any sort of investment fund, or that's just something that's personal. And even in my personal investments, it's something that instead of investing big amounts, I would go for something where I would have to put in small amounts over time. And even if I invest in stock exchange, it's not going to be for sort of day trading, which is again what a lot of people do, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I usually don't take
careful
that. I'm more careful with my investment decision making.
Okay. And do you think that has something to do with the conversations around money that you had at home as a child, or even growing up?
Not sure, actually. I'll have to discuss this with my therapist. I don't know. Not sure. We did not have a lot of conversations around money, actually. I think it's more of these conversations happened after I got married, or I think in my 20s, not as a kid. As a kid, I think maybe our parents kind of keep us away from, for some reason.
I think
they
that's
don't really discuss money with us. But as you become more independent, then yes, there's always this concern of scarcity, and there's always this concern of what if it runs out. And it's with everyone, I think, but more so with women, I think, for some reason.
I think more so with people who have enough to lose.
It. Yeah, maybe
what
that
if you
too.
lose it? I think that's a question
Yeah.
that you need to.
Yeah, but I think you're always I'm personally always concerned that I would take some sort of some wrong decision, and I might lose what we've earned over the years. So that's this responsibility that I constantly feel, and I feel because of that I would never take a very big risk, where I even am not 50% sure. So majority of the investments that I will do, I'd be 80 to 90% sure that this will do well, and I will end up earning more than what I've invested in it. There's always a risk, but I would not invest in something that's very high risk.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Sidra, for having this conversation. I'm glad we were able to talk about your work after 18 years of knowing each other. But thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely.